Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. I love you all. My name is miahtheking, and I had a joke about time traveling, but y'all didn't like it. Thanks so much for clicking on my video. It means a lot, and if you're debating on sticking around, then let me give you two reasons to try to do so. The first is the funny one-liners at the start of each video, and the second is because I can help you figure out if you need a game in 10 minutes or less. Don't believe me? Then stick around and find out. And if you're wondering why I'm sounding a bit off, it's because turns out last week I had bronchitis, and I'm still getting over it. But, yeah, so hopefully I can get through this video just fine. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Wanderstop, a cozy narrative game about farming or something, I don't know, but they say it's from the creator of the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide, so that's kind of cool. Developed by Ivy Road and published by Annapurna Interactive, hope I'm saying that right, released not in early access and selling for $25. So what even is this game anyway? Well, you play as Alta, a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, only to realize she did need a man. It's a long story. Without spoilers, Alta is a powerful warrior, because of course she is, and then one day her winning streak ends and she heads out determined to refine her skills with an old legendary mentor. On her way, she loses consciousness, and a jolly old fat guy helps her to come to terms with life by helping him run his tea shop. And that's all I'm going to give you. So next up, as always, let's go into the good and the bad, followed by my final thoughts, alright? So the first positive point for me was the graphical design. I'm actually a fan of stylized art like this. It's always very pleasant on the eyes and typically gives a nice show while playing the game. Now, it's not like the best, but, you know, it's not bad. Again, with the purple and pink hues, though, I gotta say, I'm not a fan of seeing these color choices in games. I don't know why they're popping up all of a sudden. But it's not exactly ugly, and it's not exactly in your face, so, you know, maybe I can get over it. The art is very simplistic overall, but it's not awful to look at. It's not the best or the most beautiful, as I mentioned, but it's not, like, the worst, so, I don't know. It's okay, I guess, for what it is. I'm maybe good enough to be in the positives. The next positive point would be the sound design. In similar fashion to the graphical design, it's passable, I guess. The most notable of the sound design would be the voice actress for Alta. She comes and goes throughout the story. You know, she narrates some scenes, inner monologues on some scenes, and is completely silent during actual conversations, but the sounds that it sounds like she's doing a pretty good job, more or less, and at the very least, she's believable, like I believe she's Alta. Everything else here is just kind of average, though. The music comes and goes, and sometimes it's nice and pleasant, and other times it's obnoxious and in-your-face annoying. The sound effects are kind of goofy and childish, but I feel like that's the point of them, like that's what they were going for, so I can't really call that a negative. Overall, I just think that the sound design was passable, but with a great voice actress. Barely passable. Next up for the positives is the writing. I typically don't really get into games where you play as a female protagonist. I like to immerse myself in games, and it's hard to do so when I'm playing someone of the opposite gender. However, the writing here isn't as cringy as I thought it would be. Despite the tone they're clearly going for here, it wasn't like badly written. The whole idea here is about a young woman coming to terms with life and making a change. So you watch her struggle and fight with herself, with others, with life, as she tries to adapt, to change, to understand, and to evolve into a different person, basically, despite her own stubbornness and pride. A real journey of understanding and inner depth diving into one's soul, with a kind of quirky kind of friend who shows up out of nowhere to help you by just being nice. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not all great. There's definitely some writing here that's a bit goofy and cringy, but I can't really consider those moments to be negative because I believe they were written that way on purpose. Like, for instance, the dad who's pretending to be a knight. But honestly, I don't think the writing was really all that awful in quality, at least in my opinion from what I experienced. I suppose the next thing I want to talk about would be the inner workings of the gameplay. There's just a lot here randomly, so I won't just label it as I normally do, and instead I'm just going to speak about the things that I noticed. The gameplay is super simple, and that includes everything, from mechanics to user interface to actual gameplay. It's one button fits all. Just click to do anything, and right click to cancel anything. You use simple button commands to sift through inventory and select things. The user interface is very simple without needing to even really read anything to navigate around and find things or whatever. But the gameplay is both good and bad depending on your point of view. For right now, we'll talk about it in a good light. The game is about patience. It's about relaxing, and it's just about taking a break. So if you're playing through Elden Ring and getting super stressed out about something and need a break, this would be what you'd play in the interim. But here you make tea, talk to interesting customers, and learn about them. Garden and harvest unique plants, and craft interesting tea in a very interesting tea-making machine. I actually really kind of liked the making of the tea process. It's different from anything else that I've seen, and it adds a nice little flair to the gameplay. Even the planting of seeds is a bit unique because the game wants you to do it in certain ways, like a puzzle, to create and come up with newer and different plant ideas by combining or trying new things. So it's definitely interesting, and not like anything else I've seen. But other than the tea-making process, the rest of the gameplay is lacking, and we'll go into that later. But for now, it's just a simple, relaxing game about doing nothing except contemplating your own life choices. So that's all I really got to say positively about the game. Now we got to go into the negatives. But before that, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I'm trying really hard to get to 5,000 subs. It may not seem like a lot to most people, but it is for me. Also, I really want to help gamers, so I try to get these reviews out quickly, but sometimes I can't reach you guys fast enough. So make sure you hit that bell as well, because it lets you know when I post new content, which can be very random, and it'll help you save some money and time, alright? Alright, so on to the negatives. I think it could be that the game just isn't for me, but overall, the gameplay was super boring and repetitive. Part of the actual gameplay is legit just sweeping up leaves, or sitting down and listening to the voice actress muse over her past memories, talking with unimportant people about unimportant things. Like, I'm a very patient person, but I'm also a very time-obsessed person, and any time I feel like is being wasted starts to aggravate my very skin. And so this game about just sitting around and doing nothing kind of irritated me a lot more than it would probably other people, but that's just me. While trying to stay objective, there's not a whole lot to do in this game despite it supposedly being a game about relaxing and taking a break. I mean, that's fine and all, but there still has to be something to do, otherwise why am I even playing this game and not another one? If there are no customers to make tea for, then you're literally just walking around sweeping up leaves, cutting weeds, and waiting around listening to the main protagonist's inner monologues. And all that to the super simplistic controls, the super simplistic mechanics, and overall gameplay loop, and there just wasn't a whole lot here to really keep me invested or entertained. Even the quirky dialogue started to get old after about an hour, as I became used to it since it's obviously just how this world is, and makes it less impactful the more you get into it. Another negative about the game is the stability. Now this is actually a minor negative, as I didn't notice a single glitch, bug, or error until this happened. My game froze here, with no way out of it. I clicked on every button on my keyboard, and I'm just stuck here. It actually broke my game, and what's worse, when I went to the menu, look, it says save and quit is disabled when in dialogue, which means I couldn't even save the game and quit. The game has autosaves, but still, when was that last? But it forced me to hard restart the game, so beware, this might just be the tip of the iceberg. Next up for the negatives is the gameplay. Despite the game being labeled as farming sim, life sim, and adventure, it doesn't really have any of those aspects. There's no adventure here, as it's not a journey, it's actually the opposite. It's about you stopping your adventure and settling down to do a tea shop, so I don't know why it's labeled as adventure. As for farming sim, it's not really. I mean, sure, it does have some aspects of farming, like putting seed in ground and watering seed, but that's super simple and super basic and easy and requires almost no management at all, so could you even accurately describe it as a farming sim? And life sim? How? How exactly is this a life sim? Can she change clothes, sleep, eat? Does she build relationships? Does she upgrade the shop? Can she manage the shop? Can she do literally anything from a life sim game other than collect shit in her inventory? No, she can't. The gist of the gameplay is also pretty boring. You wait while listening to average music. Then a customer pops up. Your character is very rude to them, and they tell her their life story. Then she forces tea on them. Then you have to go and make the tea. Takes about 5 seconds to plant the fruit you need, 5 seconds to prepare the tea, 5 minutes to talk to the guy, and 5 seconds to deliver the tea, rinse and repeat. I think the only thing of actual meaning here is when the main character does her inner monologue while sipping on tea alone. I think that's the only real character building or progression you get in the game, but otherwise this is just it. This is what you do over and over again, and honestly it was just very boring all around. So look, those are the only things I can think of negatively to say about the game. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, I think the game is very well written, but it's boring. Even relaxing games need to have some kind of hook for players to get attached to, else they'll just go find a different relaxing game. You know what else is a relaxing game? My Time at Porsche, and that game actually has a great hook to keep you attached. It's an idle game, I get that. It's meant to be a relaxing game, I get that. But I don't see the appeal. Perhaps it's just not for me. But I've played idle games before as well as relaxing games, and I understand the appeal of those. But for me personally, I don't get it here. It was just boring. I'm sorry, but it was. Your quote-unquote choices don't really matter. Nothing does, actually. The guy even says, who cares if you make a mistake? Sometimes that's what's supposed to happen. So there's no consequences, there's no time limits, there's no objective, there's no purpose, there's no reason, there's nothing. There's just nothing here. With average graphics, average sound design, simplistic gameplay, simplistic user interface, simplistic dialogue, the game is just very basic, very boring, very shallow. All for $25, and it just doesn't seem worth it to me. So no, I can't recommend this game as an idle relaxing game. You'll find yourself more bored than anything else. Now maybe if the game was super beautiful, or maybe if it had some better music, it could have worked better. But as it is now, it just doesn't. For a game like this, you need to have an addictive gameplay mechanic, a fantastical music design, and absolutely gorgeous graphics. It's the only way to excuse the fact that it's a game where you sit around and do nothing but relax. But this game is lacking in those regards. So I can't say this is a good game, it's just a boring game. It's got well-written dialogue, I guess, but the idea and the premise is kind of cringy and lame. The chick literally makes everything about her and doesn't care about anyone else and is super rude to everyone, even the really nice guy who saves her. And I know it's a story about coming to terms with life and adapting and changing, so maybe she's got to be rough in the beginning, but I feel no connection to the character at all. I feel no reason to care about her at all, and since I didn't see a single redeeming quality about her in my first 2 hours, I felt no reason to be invested in her as a character and no reason to wait around to see the change she may or may not take. And I honestly don't want to sit around for 8 hours doing absolutely nothing just to find out what kind of change she makes. I don't care about her enough to do that. And the gameplay isn't interesting enough or fun enough to make me want to stick around. The relaxing sim part of the game not engaging enough for me to want to stick around. So since the game doesn't offer me a lot of reasons to stick around, I'm just not gonna. I get that the writer of the Stanley Parable was part of this, but I'm not gonna let that cloud my mind. I'm gonna be honest, and I just don't think this game is worth your time or your money. There are far better alternatives out there to this game that I would much rather you support. So my recommendation is to pass on this game, guys. I just don't think it's worth it. Alright? Alright, so that's all the time I got for today. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.